As we go to the structure of the coffee bean or the coffee cherry, the second layer is the mucilage. When we dry the mucilage on top of the seed, we call this process a honey process. As you can see, we start to pulp the coffee bean and we start to remove some of the layers. When we remove the external layer and we leave the mucilage, we will lead it to ferment, and we start to talk about the process of fermentation. However, first, float the cherries. Every processing technique in coffee requires the floating of the cherries, where we will be able to lower the microbial activity and separate the coffee cherries because of their quality and density. When we remove the skin on the outer layer of the coffee seed, we will expose the mucilage that is rich in carbohydrates and pectins. These carbohydrates will be the nest for microorganisms to start to proliferate, and that's what we call fermentation in simple terms. When we take the coffee, we let it ferment with the mucilage and then take it out to the drying space, we will finish off with a product such as this one, where you can see that in the outer layer of the bean, there's different spots of oxidized pectins. The flavors that you can achieve with honeys are a balance between a wash process and a natural process, and depend a lot in the rate of how you dry the coffee. In honey process, you can ferment pulped coffee in different stages, the same as that we're going to see with the wash, but the distinct is that you dry the mucilage on top of the parchment. In the drying process, at the early stages, you are going to get formations of clusters. You will want to avoid any formation of these clusters, and you need to spread the coffee evenly. Ideally, when drying honeys, you start with an initial fast drying to avoid the clusters and to maintain a consistent drying structure. Afterwards, you will finalize the coffee drying the same as any other process at 10% moisture content. When drying honeys, smell is always a good indicative of how the process is coming along. The time that it would take to dry a honey process will vary between 15 to 20 days. Here, with the weather, you need to be aware that the coffee must never be wet again, and that has to have a continuous drying.